From what it seems like, things are finally returning back to normal. And I have a few articles pulled up right now, and as you can see, Lyft says drivers are coming back, shares jump 12%. Going to the main Spark notes, Lyft reported third quarter earnings on Tuesday after the bell, setting shares surging and extended trading. Lyft CEO Logan Green said driver supply materially improved in the third quarter, up nearly 45% year over year. The company reported 18.94 million active riders this quarter. The company expected 19.69 million per street account. So it seems like Lyft is doing pretty good. Their third quarter earnings were really good. Going up here to the next one, Lyft reports adjusted profitability again as revenue per rider increases, right? Lyft reported Tuesday its second consecutive quarter of adjusted profitability as riders returned to the U.S. ride-hailing company service. As you can see now on this article, Uber Technologies shares jumped Friday after the company reported its first ever adjusted profit since going public, boosted by a recovery in the ride-hailing and sustained demand in its delivery business. With all that being said, it seems like in a really good way that ride-sharing seems to be becoming more normalized, right? I talked about this before in other videos earlier this year that there was such a big mix match of people finally now going out and there being less drivers on the road. A lot more people are driving now, so it seems like it's a lot more balanced. In addition to just my own personal experience now, going out, taking Lyfts and Ubers before, and I never used to see this before earlier this year, let's say I would order a Lyft and Uber, and someone would say, sorry, no riders at all. There's no drivers on the road for you. Try ordering again, and I've never seen that before. Now, I don't think I've seen that once, except on Halloween weekend, which I feel like it's kind of common anyway. Even before the pandemic, getting an Uber or Lyft on Halloween was always super chaotic and crazy. So things, luckily, are returning back to normal. However, we'll have to see what happens because I just did a video about this yesterday talking about Uber Pool, how Uber's like, hey, we're doing better, which is great, right? Like, we're doing a lot better. Quarter three was great, but rides are still super expensive. However, I feel like this brings up a big subject is, will Lyft and Uber, as things become more normalized in terms of taking rideshare, as things become more normal, will Lyft and Uber try lowering their prices? Because remember, if they lower their prices, it can really only come out of two people's pockets, or actually could be a lot. But the main two are either drivers' pockets or Lyft's pockets. And let's be honest, with Lyft and Uber, they're both companies. They're designed to make money. I feel like it's going to affect drivers more. Now, drivers earlier this year, throughout this year, have been making a good amount of money. There's very few drivers on the road. Lyft and Uber is offering tons of bonuses, and I did videos about this as well. So that's a really good thing. As a driver, you can make an insane amount of money. And I talked to a lot of drivers who are killing it, especially when it comes to all the crazy bonuses. As things get more normal, though, and more people take a Lyft and Uber, I think the big thing on a lot of people's minds when it comes to passengers taking Lyft and Uber is, well, why is it still so expensive? Like, I get that earlier this year it was super expensive because it's a pandemic, there's few drivers, but now, why is it still so expensive? When is Lyft and Uber gonna get cheaper? And like I said, if they decide to make Lyft and Uber cheaper, the only way, in my opinion, it's gonna really affect the whole bottom line is they're taking it out of the drivers' pockets. Yeah, maybe Lyft or Uber could charge some of their own employees, or pay some of their own employees less. Maybe they deal with their shareholders. I don't know. But pretty much, let's be honest, it's going to affect the drivers. And that's what I'm curious to see in 2022. How will this affect everything overall? Now, of course, like I said yesterday on that video, when it comes to Uber Pool, that's Uber's kind of alternative to this. It's saying, hey, with Uber Pool, at least that way people can get an Uber that's a little bit cheaper, so maybe that entices more people to take an Uber, because a lot more people now are considering taking taxis. I actually was reading an article a few days ago that said that now when it comes to New York City specifically, just talking about New York, the amount of people taking taxis is up 5%, which wasn't a thing for maybe even years, right? I mean, a lot more people are taking taxis, and I think the bigger reason is the whole surge pricing aspect. If Lyft and Ubers are already more expensive than normal, then you add surge pricing into that, more people are like, wait, why would I spend so much money just to get home when I could do this and get a taxi like that? And I know it's going to be way cheaper than waiting for a Lyft and Uber. trying to, wait for the chaoticness that is Lyft and Uber when there's a taxi right over there. Like, why would I get the Lyft and Uber? I feel like in most areas besides New York, it's not as easy just to quickly, bring over a taxi and just wave them down. Of course. So I will say that that's New York specific, but I think that does show, though, that people are now still on the fence when it comes to going out about getting a Lyft and Uber because of the prices. Now, again, it comes down to this main thing, though, and I've talked about this before in other videos, where it is a balancing act. Because if you think about it, people want to spend the least amount of money taking a Lyft and Uber, right? We all know that. But drivers want to make the most amount of money driving for Lyft and Uber. And that exact balancing act is always going to be mixed match. You can't have super cheap prices and pay the drivers an insane amount. And if you somehow do, then it has to come out of your own pocket. It has to come out of that company's pocket specifically, and there's a whole amount of math and accounting that even goes into that, because you, like I said, you pay your employees less, you do this and this. I mean, whole other subject for a whole other video. And so that's why I'm curious in 2022 how Lyft and Uber wants to do with that balancing act, where they do want to start making prices maybe more affordable for people and a little bit cheaper like it was pre-pandemic, but they also don't want to screw over all the drivers who did drive, who put in all this time, effort, and just hustled, especially during this year when it was kind of crazy to drive for Lyft and Uber. They don't want to screw over all the drivers. However, as we all know, typically that's what happens. When it comes to this whole price war of people wanting to spend less and drivers want to make more, the people that usually suffer are the drivers. And especially now, let's say in California, with Prop 22 being a thing, drivers are now still independent contractors, which means if they were employees, maybe they have more rights in terms of price protection. But when I talk to a lot of drivers after Prop 22 happens, it seems like a lot of drivers, at least here in California, are like, look, I think it was the worst thing that ever happened. And I even heard from some drivers, like, look, I voted for it. I was actually for the idea of Prop 22. But now, after seeing what Prop 22 has done, it's actually way worse being a driver because I have way less rights. Because being an independent contractor legally, you just have way less say over what happens. I don't know. A lot of unanswered questions. In a good way, like I said, because all the numbers are up on Q3, that's obviously a good thing. That's obviously a good thing. But we'll have to see what happens in 2022 with this whole balancing act going on. Uber's bringing back Uber Pool. Like I said yesterday, I don't know if Lyft wants to bring back Lyft Line. Tough to say. Have to see what happens next year.
Ba ba da da ba da ba da ba ba